Hey guys, Huck here. I'm launching my new website. It's called Ade.LINE. I have my first product, a pre-order, because I do not have the funds for this project. And I've done testing and I've made sure that I've locked my process down and I know what I'm doing and I know everything works. And all I need now is the funding to complete it. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. I used to make these parts. These are now what I'm referring to as the Gen 1 resin parts. They're basically a carbon copy of what's on the Stryfe already. You can see everything is pretty much the same, all the hardware. But with this generation, I want to do something a little bit differently. These are the masters for the Gen 2 resin parts, and they are resin 3D printed. I've completely customized everything. The look is much cleaner, it's much simpler. The Gen 2 resin parts are going to be cast resin. These are 3D printed resin, which is different. The 3D printed resin has some mechanical properties that I don't like. It's rather brittle. If you take it out in the sun, it's going to degrade because they are UV curing. It's eventually going to degrade to the point where it's not going to be favorable, and they're already pretty brittle. It lets me capture all of the detail of these resin printed parts while maintaining mechanical properties that I still like. Not to mention the bunch of different colors that I can do these in, and it's actually going to be a lot faster of a process as well. So let's take a look at the parts themselves. First of all, we got the attachment points. The only real difference between this and the stock version is that the knurling is a lot higher definition. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same. Mag release. I actually went back and forth whether I was going to make a paddle or not. I personally don't like the lever style mag releases. I don't like the distance traveled. I like more of the button instant you hit it and your magazine falls out. And I changed it up a little bit, which I haven't seen anyone do before. And you don't realize how uncomfortable this thing is until you make a contoured part, and all of a sudden that's significantly better. Regardless of how this project goes, whether it gets funded or not, I'm definitely going to be making these. Next up, we got the rev trigger. Now, a lot of people are going to recognize this as a Bobo style trigger. I prefer not to call it that just because the Bobo trigger is a very specific shape. It's a very specific design. This is not that design. I like it because you can really choke up on the blaster and you can still get your finger on this button here, and it's not interfering with anything down here, but your landing pad is still bigger than the stock Stryfe here, where some people don't like how small that is of a button. It's also significantly more sunk into the blaster. The Bobo one sticks out quite a bit. And there's also a bit of knurling on the front here just for a textural feel. The trigger, it's pretty much the same other than the fact that it's been simplified, and there is some knurling on the front again for the tactile feel. The attachment nub, which a lot of people look over, is this attachment nub on the top right here. And as long as the pre-orders are open, everyone's going to be getting a limited edition, first edition attachment nub for their Stryfe. And whenever the pre-orders are done, I will stop production on these, and I'm just going to switch over to regular attachment nubs. Next up, we have the jam door, and this is something I'm really excited about. We actually have some magnets in here, and this little insert piece goes and slips right into this channel right here without any sort of glue or anything, and it will magnetically attach to the jam door, and that way you're not relying on these little friction bits. If you've ever painted your Stryfe, you'll know that they're a pain in the butt to deal with. A lot of times people will just sand them down and just hope the friction of this is enough to keep it down. Super annoying. I'm very happy with how this magnetic closure came out, and that just gives you a little bit more positive connection. It's also knurled just a little bit on the left and the right side, and it's nothing too aggressive. It's not as aggressive as the triggers, but it's just a little bit of extra grip to help you open that jam door. And last but certainly not least, we have the muzzle. This has been cleaned up quite a bit. It's been simplified and has a nice clean look to it. There's a logo on the front here, which is my logo, but again, it's nice and small. It's not jumping in your face. We have a Picatinny rail, and that is built in so that can have all your attachments. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you can put a long foregrip on here and wrench on it and it's not going to snap. These components are strong, but I'm just going to throw caution out there and say maybe be careful when you try to put any sort of attachments on here, but it is there as an option. And then last, you got some knurling around the barrel. It does not have an attachment point for barrels. I figured anyone who's getting resin parts probably isn't going to try to put an attachment on the front. Maybe I'm wrong. If that's a deal killer for you, I totally understand, but it's giving it a much cleaner look, I think. Few disclosures. Any pictures out there of resin parts that I have done are not the Gen 2 that I will be selling. Those are all Gen 1. It is just for reference to give you an idea of how these are going to look. Second, these parts will only fit the N-Strike Elite style Stryfe. These will not fit the Pro Stryfe. The new one that just came out, that's 120 bucks. It will not fit that at all. So please do not message me asking, and do not buy them and say they don't fit on my Pro Stryfe. There's pictures, there's descriptions. Now I'm putting in the video. It is not compatible at all. They'll come in a bunch of different colors. All these colors here, there's actually some colors that I can do that aren't on here, even like opaque green I don't actually have. And if you have any custom ones that you want to do, probably save that until after the pre-order, but feel free to message me. If it's nothing too complicated, we might be able to work something out. There might be an extra cost to it though. I'm planning on these pre-orders to be open for 8 weeks, but to be perfectly honest, I don't really know how long it's going to last. I don't know if it's going to be more or less. Either way, I'll update everyone on my website, here on YouTube, and in all of my socials. If you don't follow me on Instagram or anything, link is in the description below. Last up, if there's any inquiries about the price, I'm going to have to delete them just because I want to keep the price on the website itself and nowhere else. Because if I start telling people prices in comments or even here on the video, if I change it later in any circumstance, it's going to get confusing. There's going to be multiple prices everywhere and I just don't want to deal with that. So if you are curious about the price, just check the website real quick. It's right there. It's not hidden or anything. It's not a secret, but I just don't want to post it anywhere else. If you have any questions or you just want to chill out, I usually hang out in Wacom's Discord server, and you can find a link to that in the description below. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. Thanks for watching. I want Ade.LINE to be more than just Nerf. I want Ade.LINE to be any sort of creative process that I'm going through at the time. I want it to be anything that I'm working on. So even though it's just Nerf right now, that's literally because I'm already into Nerf. It's something easy for me to get into, but Ade.LINE itself, I have a Discord. It's not available to the public yet, but I want it to be about helping people make stuff. And that's pretty much it. So, thank you for joining me on this journey. I don't really know where it's going, but hopefully it's going somewhere.